Okay, so now ready to get started on the border. So what I've just done, you may notice that my ends are a little bit tidier than they were before. That's because I've just basically tied them together in pairs and I've trimmed them to around about 1 inch long, just under, sort of a couple of centimetres. Okay, now some people I know prefer to leave their ends longer and trim them after they've sort of made the first two borders and just before they join it. If you prefer to do that, that's absolutely fine. But for me, I find it easier to sort of hold them out of the way when they're not quite so long. So what I've got here, you can see I've got a hook, which is half a hook size smaller than I use for my blanket. Now my pattern says to use a 4mm hook, but I actually generally nowadays use a 3.75. Now the 4mm is for like the average crocheter, but what I've discovered is over the last sort of few years of doing mosaic, it seems to be that my stitches have just loosened up a little. So I just now step it down to a 3.75, which is why I've got a 3.25mm hook. But if you're using the 4mm as the pattern says, then 3.5 should be just about right for the border. Most people will need to use a smaller hook for the border because that'll just help to keep those stitches marginally smaller than they were in the blanket, and that helps your border to stay nice and flat. Okay, but say if you're different, you go with whatever experience told you. If you've got experience of using a different size, that's fine. So that's my hook. You'll also see I've got a pile of stitch markers. So I've got 4 in this lighter blue here, which I'm going to use to mark every corner chain, because we're going to be working into the corner chains, and that'll just make it a lot easier to find them. And then there's one more marker that I'm going to be using to mark the slip stitch at the end of each round. So, and that's because we're going to be working the last stitch of the following round into that slip stitch. So again, that makes it easier to find that. So that's what the markers are for. Now, for On the Seashore, the first round of the border is done in the same colour as we started and ended our blanket with, this C1 colour. And especially because this is dark brown for mine. There we go. To make it easier for you to see the stitches, I'm not actually going to show you me doing the first round around here because dark brown on dark brown won't be so easy to see. So what I'm now going to do is just splice in a little bit of the first round from the Flora's Fauna border video, because that was done in a contrasting colour. So it's exactly the same principle, so you can follow the instructions for that, and then I'll come back afterwards and run you through the rest of the border. Right, so I've got my little pile of markers that will help us with the border, and I say just show you, I'm now at the top edge of my blanket. So this is the very last row that I worked on the main body of my blanket. So we're going to be starting, if you can see there, in this chain, the last chain on that last row. So we're not going to be working into the chain space. You could, if you wanted to, work around those chains like so, to make it like a front post stitch. But if you do that, just be aware that when you do the border on the other side, you will then see little dotted lines, or like a line down the edge there, where if you look when you do that, so you'll have the yarn from the other border on there. And also, and if you do that, you'll then probably want to do post stitches around there. I don't do that to keep it lighter, because I've got another method, as you may be aware, where I did do front post stitches, but that does make it a little bit more bulky. So by working into the chains, so at the top we're going to work our first stitch like that, but all the way along the edge we are going to basically be working a double crochet into that chain there, like so. Okay, so that's all we're going to do all the way out. It's really quick and easy to get started there. Okay, so we'll get started with a standing double crochet into, as I said, this last, just that front loop of this last chain on the final row of our blanket. Okay, if you notice, I didn't actually put, and I'll start again, didn't actually put a knot in the end of that first Like normally with a standing double crochet, when we've been doing the blanket, I've started with a slip knot on the end, but this I've just basically, if you see, just twisted the yarn around. That will just mean that you don't then end up with a bulky knot in your border. If you prefer to start with a slip knot, that's fine. Anyway, it's going to start, like I said, just in that front loop of that very last chain on the last row of our blanket, and we're going to pop a double crochet in there. Okay, so now we've got one chain, just one, and then another double crochet in that same stitch. Don't worry about it all sort of pulling up there, that'll all get sorted out at the end. Okay, so now what we need to do, this is where the markers come in. So we've got double crochet, chain, double crochet, but you can see it's very difficult to sort of spot which is the chain. So to help us with that, I'm going to do this on every corner. We are going to pop a marker just in that last chain. Okay, so whether you put it in the front loop or the back loop doesn't really matter there. I'm just going to pop it into that front loop of that chain. Okay, so we now know where our corner is going to be, because we're going to be working into that chain. We don't work into chain spaces, we're going to be working into this actual chain when we do the corner on the next round, and that will, you won't really notice, there won't be any kind of hole there. Like, you know, normally on the corners when you work into chain spaces you get a little hole, but you won't there, that'll fill that in. Okay, so that is now our first corner done. So now all we're going to do, as I said, I've just turned that around, we are now going to be working, so insert your hook like so into this front loop of that chain and work your double crochet there. Oh, hold on, didn't quite get all of the, that's no good, is it, on that stitch? That's split a bit. Right, there we go. So I'm going to work into that front loop there, double crochet. So that's all we're going to do. Work down the edge like so, just picking up that front loop of those chains. Okay, and that is how easy it is to get started on your envelope border if you remember to have that little chain space at each end. Okay, so carry on like so until you get down to the end of this side, and I'll meet you there. Okay, so I've now just got a couple more stitches to pick up down this edge, and then I'll get to that sort of second corner. We started this route, this edge with a corner, right? So we'll just do the last couple in there. So as I've been doing all along, carry on like so, just in that front loop, right down to the very, so this is now actually, because I started at the top of my blanket, this is now that foundation chain here. Okay, so just carry on, and this time we're going to be working just front loop double crochets just into these stitches here. So we're going to start with our corner in this first chain here. Okay, so one double crochet, one chain, one double crochet, all into there, and then remember we're going to just pop our marker into that chain. Oh, get in, there we go. So we now know where our corner is, and as I said, we're just now going to simply insert our hook into that front loop of every chain along the bottom there. Okay, so it's important to just do the front loop, because when we come to do that back border we're going to be using the other loop for that. Okay, so just carry on like so, and I will see you again at the next corner. Okay, so I've now just got to the next chain there at the bottom edge of the blanket. So here we can do this corner exactly the same way as we've done the last two. So it's just a case of working into the front loop of this chain. We're going to do 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet. Okay, and then we're going to pop our marker into that chain. Brilliant. And then it's a case of turning around, and we're going to go back up this edge. So again, it's just a case picking up, if you can see, this front loop of the chain. Look a little bit different at this end, but it is still, if you're worried about where to start, just pull it out so you can see the actual spaces, and then just get this front loop there. Okay, and we're going to work as before into there. You can always tuck your finger there to just put them out of the way if you want. Okay, put that marker out of the way. So it's just double crochet into the front loop of all of those chains up this edge. Okay, so carry on like so, and I will see you when you get to the next corner. Right, on the home straight for this first round of the front border here. So I've just now got up to the last corner we're going to need to work here. So again, it's just make sure, difficult to show you, but there's definitely the chain space there. So we're now going to be working, the corner will be 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet into the front loop of that last chain, or the first chain on the top edge. And as we've been doing all along, we're going to pop that marker into that chain. And now, just as we did at along the bottom edge of the blanket along the top, we're going to just now work a whole row of double crochets just into that front loop, right along the bottom edge. Okay, let's carry on and do that. And I will see you when you get to the end of this row, which is also right where you started this round. I'll just show you how we then do the corner and get started, complete this round, and then do round 2. Right, so I've now just done that last stitch along that top edge of my blanket for the border there now. So now we just need to join it up to where we started. So it's going to be a nice simple, just a slip stitch. So we're going to insert our hook into that first standing double crochet we did there, pull through. Now make sure you don't pull this loop too tight, because we're actually going to be working the last stitch of round 2 into that slip stitch, so we don't forget where that is, so we don't lose that slip stitch. Just going to pop another marker in there. Quite a few markers in the corners, but don't worry. Okay, so I've now got the first round of border 1 done. And as you can see, it's all very brown there, so that's why I showed you the florist fauna to help you out with it. So now I've just got my marker there in that final slip stitch of round 1, and I'm now going to join a different yarn for round 2. So I've kept my C1 yarn attached because I'm going to be needing that for the next round, so that'll just stay at the back. And now I'm going to be picking up C2 because on my blanket here I'm doing the 2 colour versions, so that's just wherever the pattern says C2 or C3, I'm going to be using the same yarn. But if you were doing the 3 colour version, then this is your C3, the colour that you would have used for your razor shells and the whelks at the beginning. Right, so to join a new yarn, say straight after that slip stitch from the previous round, we're just literally going to pull that through. Okay, pull that one down. And then to lock everything in, we've basically got at the start of every round, so even if you didn't change your colours, you still need a chain at the beginning of the round. So if you weren't changing colour, you wouldn't have this loop here. That would be straight after your slip stitch, you would do a chain. Okay, and that's just effectively a turning chain, even though we're not actually sort of turning our work over. Okay, so that chain doesn't count as a stitch, so it's just literally there to get your hook up to the right level. And now what we're going to do, the next thing is to work a double crochet. So we've got our marked corner chain there, so we're going to work, and actually if you want to just hold this yarn in place, you can just pop that over there. So 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet, all into that marked corner chain. Okay, now I'm just going to pull all these ends so it's nice and secure. So what we're now going to do is take this marker out and move that up to the chain we've just done on that corner there. Okay, so every round as we do the corners, we're going to be moving our markers up into that chain. And then all we're going to do, get the right strand of yarn. There we go. So this is a nice easy round. We are just going to be doing double crochets into our back loop. So there are our back loop double crochets into every stitch around. Okay, until we get to the corners. And in those marked corner chains, we'll do like we did here, 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet, move that marker up. Okay, so carry on like that. I will just come back and show you when I get to the next corner. But round 2 is nice and simple. Whoop, back loop double crochet in every stitch. Okay, so I'm now almost to the next corner. I've just got 1 more stitch to do before I get to that marked chain. Whoops. Okay, so as before, it's just a case of working into the back of that chain. So not into the chain space, but into the actual chain with 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet. And then we take that marker out and pop it in there. Okay, so just carry on around working your double crochets, your back loop double crochets in every stitch, and then just on in those marked corner chains, it's 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet into that marked chain, and then move your marker up into the chain on the current row. So carry on all the way around like so. And I'll see you when you get to the end of the round, which is obviously also the beginning of the round. And I'll just take you through how we end that and start the next round. So I'll see you shortly. Okay, so I've now got round to the end of round 2. So I'm just going to make my last stitch into this marked slip stitch, like so. I'll take that out now. And then I'm going to slip stitch into this the first double crochet there. So it's right next to the marked corner chain. Okay, so again, don't pull it too tight. You got it like that, and we're just going to, if I can pick it up, pop that in that last into that slip stitch there. So that's now round 2 done. So now round 3 is basically exactly the same as we've just done, but we're now switching to our C1 colour again. So again, don't cut this one off, your C2 or C3, whichever you're using. Leave that there because we'll be coming back to it. But pick up your C1 and just pull that through. Okay, pull that one down to seal it shut. Okay, turning chain, which again doesn't count as a stitch, and then we're going to start our round in this marked corner chain with 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet, and then we're going to move this marker up into that chain we've just done there. so carry on around, as I said, exactly the same as you did for round 2. So that's a back loop double crochet in every stitch, apart from those marked corner chains where you'll be doing 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet into the actual chain, not the chain space, remember. Whoops. Okay, so this is now round 3 of the border done, and before we can get started on round 4, we're going to need some more markers. Now this is because basically the border for on the seashore is plain, apart from we've got little bits of like seaweed in the corners. So what we now need to do is mark where we're going to be starting the seaweed in the corners. So what you need is you need to grab your marker, and then we need the 9th stitch. So we're going to be marking the 9th stitch before our marked corner chains in every corner. Okay, so on this last end are slightly different to the others because our first stitch from there is marked because that's our slip stitch. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we're going to pop that in the 9th. We'll just double check that. So we have got, what we're going to have is 8 clear stitches between our marked corner chain and the marker that we put there. So that is, here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we've got that. So that is exactly where it's meant to be. So we're going to close up that marker. Now for the other corners, it's going to be a little bit easier because we haven't got the confusion of having this extra marker there. So if we now turn around, we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the marker in the 9th. And again, we're going to double check that we've got 8 stitches here. 2, 4, 6, 8. Perfect. So just go around, mark your other 2 corners exactly the same way, and then come back and we'll get started on round 4. Okay, so now you've got your 9th stitch before every corner chain marked. We're now going to get started with round 4 exactly the same way as we've done the last couple of rounds. So I've pulled up loop in my C1 or in my C2 colour, or it could be C3 if you're using 3 colours. Pulled up that loop, and then we've got our turning chain, and then just as we've been doing before, we've got 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet in our marked corner chain. Take that marker out and move it up. And now what we're going to do, we're actually now starting on our pattern, and for that we now need to do a front loop treble. So it's the first time we've done it on the border, and where we're going to be working that is basically into this corner chain from round 2. Okay, so front loop treble in there. Okay, so when we basically, what's happening is we're going to be working the stitches on either side of our little corner clusters. So will be front loop trebles, now both be worked into the same corner chain from 2 rounds down. Obviously we'll be finishing this one off when we get right round to the end. So for now we've just got it like that. Okay, so now we have got 3 back loop double crochet. So what we need to do is make sure we miss this first stitch here behind our treble, and we've got our double crochets there. So this is where a little bit of seaweed's going to be going in on the next round. Okay, so now nice and simple, we are going to be just working front loop trebles all the way along until we get to our next marker, which will be one of these, the yellow one at the end of this row. Okay, so when you'll be almost at the end of this sort of side edge of your blanket. When you see that yellow marker, wait there, come back, and I'll show you what to do next. Okay, so I've now got to the next marker. So what I'm going to do, we're we're still carrying on with our front loop treble, so I'm going to work front loop treble in that mark stitch, i.e. actually because it's a treble it's in the stitch below where the marker is, but that's that there. Okay, then we have another 4 front loop trebles, so 1. Oh, actually before I do that, let's move this marker up. Okay, so we're going to keep that same one. So that was the treble we made into the, or in front of that marked stitch before. I've now marked it again. Okay, so now we've got 4 front loop trebles, 2, 3, see, 4, and now we've got 3 back loop double crochets, 1, 2, 3. So this now takes us to just 1 stitch before our marked corner chain, and we're going to work our treble there into this, so that is the corner chain from round 2. Okay, so we're going to work our front loop treble into there. So that now takes us to our marked corner chain, and as we've done up all the time up to now, 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet, and move that marker up into that chain. Okay, so now we start again. So we have front loop treble into this corner chain, so it's exactly the same chain we did this treble into. Okay, then we've got 3 back loop double crochets, and now we're going to be doing our front loop trebles again all the way until we get to the next marker, and then we'll do the corner exactly the same as we've done here. Okay, so you'll be doing your front loop trebles effectively till you get there, and then carry on, repeat exactly what we've done around this corner. Okay, let's carry on like that, and I will see you when you get to the last of my, well, I have yellow for me, the last marker before, like the last corner. I'll see you there, and we'll just complete this round together. Okay, so I've now got to my last marker that signifies the start of the pattern on the border. So as we have been doing, 1 front loop treble in there, and then just take this marker out and move it up to that stitch we've just made. Then we have another 4 front loop trebles. This is exactly the same as you've been doing at the end of every, just missed a little bit there, every side. 2, 3, 4. Then we've got 1, 2, 3 back loop double crochets, and before unlike the others, we're not actually going to be working our last stitch into this marked slip stitch because we need to complete our corner here, remember? So that last stitch is going to be a front loop treble in that same chain that we made our first stitch of the round into. Okay, so I'm going to take that marker out of there. Then we will do our slip stitch. So remember, the slip stitch goes into this stitch immediately before our marked chain. Don't pull it too tight, and then we're going to pop that marker back in there. So that's round 4 done. So now, as we've been doing, we're going to drop our C2 or C3, whichever one you're using, and we're going to pull up a loop in our C1 and 1 turning chain, and we're now ready now to start round 5. So we have got, as we always have up to now, 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet in that corner chain, and move that marker up to the chain we've just made there. Okay, so now we've done that, we've got 2 back loop double crochets, 1, 2, and now we need to do our first little bit of seaweed in here. So we've got 3 front loop trebles, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and now nice and simple, we're just going to do our back loop double crochets all the way along until we get to that next marker again. So that one, the equivalent of this, but on this next edge. So carry on and do this, and I'll see you when you get there. I've now got up to my next marker, so I'm going to do a back loop double crochet in that marked stitch. Then we have got 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. What you can actually leave that marker where it is rather than moving it up one, because we're going to be working into that stitch again on the next round. So we've now got 3 front loop trebles here, 2, 3, then 2 back loop double crochets, and then we've got our corner again. So 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet, and remembering to move this marker up into that chain we've just done there. And then we're starting again, so we turn around, we've got 2 back loop double crochets, 3 front loop trebles, and then it's back loop double crochets to the next marker. So we're basically working our back loop double crochets all the way around, apart from doing our little bits of seaweed in the corners where we left that little space for the three back loop double crochets on the previous round. We're just going to fill them in with front loop trebles. So you can carry on around and complete round 5, and you should be fine to do round 6 all by yourself as well. So that works in exactly the same way as I've been showing you. And then I will come back and show you round 7, because we're going to do something slightly different in the corners for that. Okay, I've now completed round 6, and as I said, round 7 is slightly different in the corner here, because we're now going to do our sort of little bit of the sort of seaweed leaf into the corner. So we're actually not going to be working directly into this chain this time. I'll explain what I mean right now. So pick up your C1 as usual, and your 1 chain turning chain also as usual. Now what we're now going to be doing, instead of working into there, we are going to be working into the front loop of our chain, the same as we did when we're down here, remember? So from 2 rows, so from round 5 we're going to be working into the front of that corner chain. So we start our corner with 1 front loop treble in there, then we have our chain space, but now we're going to do 2 trebles in there. So all of the other corners, when we get to them, we'll be working directly 2 trebles, 1 chain, 2 trebles. Because this is the start of it and we want to be able to finish as we do, as we have been all the way along with slip stitching into our last stitch before the chain, that's why I've only got the 1 treble there. We're going to complete this corner when we get back round. So I'm going to take that out of there and put it in that chain space, so exactly the same as we have been normally. So now we're missing the chain space and the double crochet in the corner because we've done this. We're now going to start straight away in the next, so you can see, with our back loop double crochet in that next one there. Okay, so we've now got 2 more, so we've got 3 back loop double crochets, then we're doing 1 front loop treble, and you'll know you've done all of this right if that front loop treble goes into the first of the 3 trebles from below there. Okay, then we've got another 3 back loop double crochets, 2, 3, and then 3 front loop trebles. So that's the last of the sort of seaweed leaves there. Okay, so now we're going to be back loop double crochet all the way around to the next marker. Okay, so I'm now at that marker, so we're going to do back loop double crochet in there. Then we've got the 3 front loop trebles, 1, 2, 3, then 3 back loop double crochets, 2, 3, and 1 front loop treble. Okay, then we've got 3 more back loop double crochets, and now we're at the corner again, so we are missing out. We're not going to be working into this double crochet chain double crochet there. We're going to be working all our corner stitches into the row below with our trebles there. So into the front of that chain we've got 2 trebles. So that was that 1 treble kind of ends the first repeat in the pattern. Then we start again as we did right at the beginning there with 1 treble, 1 chain, 2 trebles. Then we take that out of there and pop it into our chain space there. And then as before, we've got 3 back loop double crochets, 1 front loop treble, and another 3 doubles, then we've got our 3 trebles in there where we left that space, and then we're going to back loop double crochet until we get to that next marker where we sort of start the border again, the corner again. So there we go, that is basically what your corners are going to look like. So carry on around repeating this until you get to that the last corner, and when you get to the last one of these little markers, I'll meet you back there and we'll complete this round. Right, so I've now got round to the last marker for round 7. So as we've been doing on the other corners, you've got your back loop double crochet, 3 front loop trebles, 3 back loop doubles, 1 treble, and then we end with our 3 back loop double crochets there. And now the very last stitch of the round again is not going to be made into our slip stitch this time. Remember I said at the start we now need to complete this corner here, so we're going to end our round with the front loop treble in there. Okay, so in that same chain as we did the trebles to start with. Oh, get the markers out of the way. There you go, let's take that marker out. So that's that corner finished, so we now need to end with a slip stitch in that last stitch as we always do, and then pop that marker back in there again. Okay, so that's round 7 done. So you just got the 1 more round now, so we can actually, oh, if I can find my scissors. Okay, so I found my scissors and cut the end off. So now finished with our C1 for this border. So we're now just going to pick up our C2 or 3, whichever you're using, whoop, for the last time. There we go. Pull that through there. There's our turning chain, same as we've been doing all along. And now we're back to working into our marked corner chain again. So that is just, and if you see, I'm just gonna hold this loose end there. I'm just going to put that over there and work over that just for this corner. We'll still need to weave it in when we get to the end, make sure it's secure, but that'll just, whoops, hold that in place. Okay, so marker in the corner chain. So now we've got 2 back loop double crochets, so that's into our 2 trebles for the corner there. 3 front loop trebles in here. 1, 2, 3. I've got 7 back loop double crochets, so that's going to go all the way along here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whoops, 7. Then we got 1 front loop treble there, and then we are going to do our back loop double crochets all the way until we get to that next marker again. So you can carry on now and basically complete round 8. I'll just come back right at the end and show, because we're going to end with an invisible join rather than a slip stitch. So basically work all the way around, and when you get back here, come back and see me and I'll just show you how we're going to complete this round. Okay, so I've now got up to that final marker for the final time. So we're, as we have been doing all around, we're going to be working our front loop treble into there. Then we have 7 back loop double crochets. Oh. 5, 6, 7, 3 front loop trebles, and then we end with our 2 back loop double crochet, the final one going into, whoops, into that last marked slip stitch. So we can take this marker out now, we're not going to need that anymore. Okay, so what we're now going to do, just to finish it off, rather than slip stitching in as we have been doing on all the other rounds, what we're going to do is an invisible join. So if you don't know how to do that, I'll just run you through that. So we chop that off like so, and then just pull that strand through. Okay, so what we've now got is our final double crochet there and strand of yarn sticking out. So to finish it off, we need tapestry needle. We're going to thread this on there. I'm just going to fold it over because that'll be a nightmare otherwise. So thread that into there. Okay, and now what we're now effectively going to do is create another loop like so. So what we're doing, we're not going to, if we were doing a slip stitch, we would insert our hook in there. Okay, if we do that though, what we're going to do is actually create an extra stitch. So what we need to do to keep it all right is actually insert our hook right where our marked corner chain is. There, you see, like so. And then don't pull it through too tight. The idea is to leave this loop looking just like all the others, so sort of like that. Then we take our needle and we put it back into that center there, and if you look, if you go down, there's an extra loop on the back. We're going back through both of them to make it a bit more secure. Pull that down and just don't totally tighten it, just enough So there we go, it kind of disappears and it looks just like all of the other stitches there. So now we just got to secure that. So we'll go back into the back there. And again, make sure you don't pull that too tight, because what you don't want to do is bunch all this up. So we keep that, that's still looking good. And then we can just, if I come down a bit further so it's away from the corner, we can do just what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do it like that. And we've got our, take that out, we've got our last end here from our C1 colour. So what I'm going to do, as this is all going to be enclosed in the border, I'm just going to tie those two together like so, sort of like 3 times. So that is not going to go anywhere, and then just chop it off, say, like we have been with the other bits here. And then you've just got to do the same with these ends from the start. So again, we will just tie them together, do it about 3 times. There we go, they're nice and secure, and chop them off like that. So that, oh, I hope you saw all that and I didn't slip off the edge, but I basically just tied together the ends at the bottom and the top there, nice and secure. And then when we do the other border, all of that will disappear inside. Okay, so here is our border 1 complete. So now we need to basically do it all again on the back, so we can then hide all these ends in it. Now you can actually literally do exactly the same border on the back if you want, and maybe invert the colours, that might be nice. But what I'm going to do, as it is the back and it's not going to get seen so much, I'm just going to do a plain back loop double crochet border on the back. So turn it over, you can start in any corner, it doesn't really matter which one. I'm going to start here, because then it gives me the chance to show you working down an edge again. But say it doesn't matter which corner you start in. So as before, I'm going to start with a double crochet in this chain. Now it may be a little bit more difficult to see the chains on the back, because obviously we've already worked stitches into them, but hopefully if we give it a little stretch, you should be able to see where they are. Okay, hopefully you can, oops, hopefully you can see that. So we're going to start in this corner again like we did before, with 1 double crochet, ooh, double crochet, chain, double crochet, and then I'm going to pop a marker in that corner chain. So it's just like we did on border 1, we're marking all our corner chains. And again, just like on border 1, we're going to be working our double crochets all the way down the edge into these, into the chains. So again, to see them, if you're struggling to see them, just stretch everything out, and hopefully you can see, there we go. Okay, so as I said, double crochet into every chain. So you'll know you're getting it right if you just remember basically you're going to be alternating colours. So you'll be doing working into a C1 chain and then a C2 chain. Obviously if you're using C3 as well, that'll alternate as well, but the colours will always be alternating. So carry on like that all the way down the edge, and I will see you when you get to the next corner. Okay, so I've now got down this edge and I'm almost to the last corner. And obviously it's a little bit trickier to see the stitches because we remember on our border 1 we started with our C1. I mean, I showed you the Florist Fauna video, the start of the border for that, so that you had the contrast. But obviously now we're working in there. You can just see, hopefully, the ridge here. So these are the loops we're going to be working into on the, I think this is the top edge, isn't it? Yeah, the top edge of our blanket. So anyway, what we've got, I think I've just got one more, there we go, one more stitch to pick up. Ooh, yeah, I've been flying along when you weren't watching me. So one more stitch to pick up there, one last double crochet, and now into this corner, double crochet, chain, double crochet, not forgetting to pop our marker in there. And so yeah, as I said, we're now going to, in fact, if you fold that, there we go, it gives you a nice little crease. You can see the ridges of all of those final loops of the stitches there. So what we've got to do is, there we go, there's the first one. So we are just going to be doing our double crochets into that final front loop along the end there. So you should be okay now. So when you get to the top edge again, it'll look kind of similar, and you'll just see the ridge of that final loop to work into. So work all the way around now, and I will see you when you get back to, when you get to the end of this round, which was obviously also where we began. And I'll just show you what to do if you don't want to change colours. Okay, so I'm now just about at the end of round one here. I've just got the one more stitch to do, and then I'm gonna slip stitch into that standing double crochet, remembering, as we did on border one, not to pull that slip stitch too tight and to pop a marker in it. Okay, so on round one we didn't have any rounds where we were using the same colour 2 rounds in a row. So just in case that's what you want to do, I'm now just going to show you how to do that. Okay, so what you will then do, you've got, is basically the same as we did before, we're just not pulling up another colour. If you were changing colour, you'd pull another colour through now, but we're just going to do our turning chain, and then it's straight into 1 double crochet, 1 chain, 1 double crochet in that corner chain, move your marker up. So say if you want to carry on and do all of your rounds the same, or just have 2 in a row the same, that is how you do it. I'm actually now, I think, going to switch to my C1 and do the rest of my border in the dark brown. Oh, take that chain out as well. Okay, so now back to there, and I'm going to do just like we did before. I'm going to pull that loop through there, tighten that down, and I start as before, turning chain, and then double crochet, chain, double crochet, and move my marker up. So that should have you all set to complete your second border. So you will have, you need to make sure you have the same number of rounds on border 2 as you did on border 1, so that will be a total of 8. So I've already done 1, got 7 more to do, and then I'll come back and show you how we join the 2 together. Okay, so I've now finished border 2. So that was just the 1 round in the C2 colour, and then I've done 7 more rounds in C1, so you can see there now it's now the same size as the front. So yeah, I've also joined with an invisible join again at the end, which makes it a lot easier when you're joining the 2 builders together to sort of know where all your stitches are, because they all look the same. And just tidied up, secured the ends and chopped them off. Right, so now we've done that, time to join the 2 together, because at the moment we've got 2 loose borders, which looks a bit strange. So we turn over to the front. You can start in any corner you like, but I mean, I might as well, I shall start in this one, I think, because that's the opposite to where I started there. So it's a new corner that hasn't been stitched into. So what we're going to do, so we've kept our corner markers in, so we can see, we know where to start. If you start in a corner and work along, assuming you haven't picked up or lost any stitches anywhere, you should then end up exactly right when you get to the next corner. So same hook, the smaller hook that we've been using throughout the whole border. And again, we're going to start with a standing double crochet. So, and again, because I'm going in the round and I'm going to be joining back into this, I don't like to have that extra little knot. So just as I did on the other borders, just going to twist that around, leave a decent size tail to get started on the border. So all we've got to do now, I'm just going to be working to carry on with the same sort of look as we have on the front, where we've been working front and back. We've been working into just the back loops, so we're going to be working in to the back loop of this corner chain, and then we've got to remember to pick up, which is basically the back loop of this one, or the back border, but that's actually the front loop as we are now looking at it. Yeah, so where they're both marked, just going to pick up that loop there. Okay, so where we've got the 2 stitches, we're going to do our standing double crochet through there, and then because it's a corner, I'm going to do 2 more double crochets in there. So every corner, every mark, when we get to the corner chains, we work them together. We're going to work 3 double crochets in there. Okay, so we can now take these markers out, don't need them anymore. Brilliant. So now we can carry on around, and all you do to join the 2 together is pick up, so you're working into the back loop of that, and then the front loop or the back loop as it was worked on the back. See, so the next stitch there, my finger in the way, I'm always doing that, that's the way I tension, try to show you where I'm going. So I'm now working into that next stitch. Okay, so we'll then double crochet together. So you're just going to do that all the way around. So again, get my finger out of the way. It's difficult to show you because it's dark brown as well, but basically you're working into the next stitch all the time. So just carry on like that, working into the back loops of each border, and hopefully if you've done everything right, when you get to the next, you'll get to the next corner at the same time. So after having said to you, if you've done everything right, you should get to the next corner on both borders at the same time, I actually haven't. I've got to the front, I've got to my corner chain here, but I've still got 1 more stitch on the back. So somewhere I messed up. Never mind, it's only 1 stitch, it's not a problem. I definitely would never pull that out for that. So what we're going to do, we're going to, remember we're working 3 double crochets into the corner chains anyway. So I'm going to insert my hook there, still go into the next stitch, so it's 1 before the chain on the back. Okay, to do that, and now we've got up to the corner chain on both. So what we're going to do is we're going to work, so obviously in the front we're still working into the same chain, but the back we're now into the corner. So at the moment we've got 1 stitch in our front corner chain and none in the back. So if we pick that up, get on the strands, pick that up like so. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, and I'm going to do another one. So we've now got 4 stitches in that front corner and 3 at the back. No one will ever know. So now we can come around the corner and carry on as before, just picking up the back loops basically of each. Okay, and you'll just see that's now tucking all, we're losing all of these loose ends in between. Okay, so carry on around like so. We'll take these corners out now, just show you what it looks like. Take the markers out. So there we go, that looks absolutely fine on the front there, and there's the back. Okay, let's carry on around like so, and we'll finish up with an invisible join again. Right, so I'm now almost to the end of my joining row, just got the last 3 stitches left to do at the end, so we'll just run through them together. 2, 3. Okay, so we started with our 3 double crochets in the corner, so that's that now. So what we do, as before for the invisible join, chop that off. Now pull our yarn through, so you've just got that 1 strand sticking out of the last stitch there, and then thread that onto our tapestry needle. And we're just gonna again miss this first, so you're missing the standing double crochet, you're not working into this loop here, where if you were doing a slip stitch is where you would go. For our invisible join, we're going to the next stitch. Okay, like so. So under the 2 strands there. Don't pull it too tight. Difficult to see in this colour, I know. I apologise for picking this one to do the border. Okay, and then we go back into where this yarn came out and down through that extra loop as well, and then just pull it so it's looks exactly the same as the other loops. Perfect. So now, as I said, because this is all going to be visible, we need to be just a little bit neater when we come to the back. We didn't have to worry before, so I'm now just bringing that round into that where like the standing double crochet comes out. Go through there, making sure you don't go right through to the front, so we're just working through this back length. Don't again pull that too tight. Okay, so now we've got that, what we can do, it'll disappear if you just come back. I'm just try to show you with it, get this one out of the way. Doesn't matter too much, but I mean obviously keep it as neat as possible. So you can go back there, and then again making sure we stay like between the 2 borders, don't go through. Okay, oops, zipped off. So we've just gone through like so, and then you can do, so basically try to keep, because we need to like weave backwards and forwards, try to keep your strands of yarn sort of in line with these front loops that are visible. Okay. I'm just going to go through like that. See, that sort of disappears then, and then we'll come back the other way like so. Okay, and just poke it out like that, and then if when you cut it you just pull it ever so slightly tighter, then straighten it out and it disappears. Okay, so do the same with this end and you're all done.